Thank you everyone for coming. It's a really big cover from my father. Making a hesped once was hard enough to do it again. That's machila for people who heard me speaking in New York may hear similar things, but the tributes of my father are still the same, whether here or there. I am who I am today because of my father and because of his amazing midot. My father and mother have given to us, and that's what I want to speak about. There is a famous question of the Avnei Nezer on this past week's parsha, that why when the Nazir makes his neder and attains a level of kedusha, he's not allowed to defile himself for the 7 relatives. When it comes to a Kohen, he has a mitzvah, except for a Kohen Gadol, mitzvah to mitame himself for the 7 relatives if they pass away. And the answer that the Avnei Nezer gives is the fact that the kedusha of a Nazir comes to the fact that he himself took a neder on himself to separate from certain things. The kedusha comes from him, as opposed to the kedusha from a Kohen. It doesn't come from himself. It comes from his parents. By his parents acting in a way of kedusha, that it continues it to him, and therefore, for that reason, he has to be mitame himself for them when they pass away. His parents, his relatives, his immediate relatives. And I feel in a similar way that I owe everything I have to my mother and my father, Zichrono Livracha, and the midot that my father has instilled in us throughout all the years have really made me for who I am today. It became so much where sometimes I think the mantra is, what would my father do in this situation? And that's how I want to act. What would he do? What would Ben do? Right, Ma? And that's how I act. And the first midah that I want to speak about is hakarat hatov, just showing thankfulness for everything that happens. If someone ever did anything for my father, he never stopped thanking you. It was continuous. Thank you so much for this, and thank you so much for that. If you bought him a new book, thank you so much for this book. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Anything. My mother, will you hear him? How many times did he thank my mother for everything that she did for him? And she did a lot for him. And I told this story, previous Levi, when I was in America a few months ago. It was my grandfather's yahrzeit. It was right before Hanukkah. And it was Corona, and my father wasn't feeling well. Not from Corona, but other issues. And he couldn't go anywhere. And there was a minyan down the block. We asked them if they would come and daven in the backyard. They came and davened in the backyard. My father got to say Kaddish. He didn't stop talking and thanking them for doing that. They were davening 2 houses away. What was the big deal? For him, it was such a big deal. That night, he said, come, we have to write a letter to the shul saying what these people did, thanking them publicly. That's this hakarat hatov for everything that happened in his life. And to follow his lead, I want to also be makir tov, first of all, to all the medical personnel that took such wonderful, wonderful care for him. And especially one doctor that Dr. Ahmad from, I think it was an Indian originally, and he told me, Reuben, come in. I don't know what's going to be with your father, but now you'll still be able to talk to him, and he'll listen to you and he'll hear you. And I was supposed to come in next week. I was supposed to come either tonight, Sunday, or next week, or the following, or Thursday. He said, come now. And because of him, I was able to have 2 days to be with my father, to daven with my father, and I'm Makir Tov for those 48 hours that I had. And in being Makir Tov to my mother, she took care of it with such mesirut. It was so hard for her, so hard for him, because he doesn't like to ask for anything. But she did it, cutting his meat. He couldn't even use his hands. Trying to keep his covered as much as possible. Thank you, Ma, so much. My sister, brother and I were so far away, we couldn't deal with a lot of things. She had to deal with the day-to-day. My brother who came before me, spending all those nights in the hospital. Thank you. Thank you, all the relatives. Anybody who did anything to help us get here. My wife, Penina, just all the paperwork. Should know what it is to come back and forth. You shouldn't know, you should have to know. So the first midah is midah of hakarat hatov. And while my father's always busy thanking others for anything that was done, it was very difficult to thank him for the things that he did, because he didn't want to be thanked. It was just something that you did. He says, "Why are you thanking me?" My mother's the same way. Don't thank me. Just whatever. It's natural. If he would drive me to YU when I was in college, and not a convenient time, but what I thought, he would find what to do. So he would say, "You know what? I'll go and stop by my parents. I'll go here. I'll go there. I'll get to work early. I'll go Sunday morning. I'll go to work early." Did he really need to go to work early? Probably not, but he used it as an excuse that he would do. Don't thank me. I'm going to get more time with you. I'll get more time to do other things. He was constantly shying away from people who wanted to thank him for all the different things that he did. My father was a true Baal Chesed, and an example of our family, what it means to do Chesed. I can't count the amount of Shiva Minyanim that my father would go to, but he didn't only go, he made sure that if one of the kids were around, they would come to him and learn Chesed from him. Without saying those words, we just knew he would do, and in the way that he did, you knew it had to be done. How many people did he bring in wheelchairs to shul, to help out? It was just part of his chesed. I mean, when I was in the hospital many, many years ago, and my father would go to all the religious, not even religious, even Jewish, he found they were Jewish, he would go make Kiddush for them Friday night. To go from person to person. He would make sure that there was someone down the block that had a lulav and etrog, and if he couldn't do it, he said, "You have to go. You have to go. He needs to bench lulav and etrog. What are you going to do?" That's the kind of person he was. He was an accountant, and if someone couldn't pay, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Pay whenever you can. Or we would cut the costs to almost nothing. That's the kind of person he was, chesed, just giving as much as he can and not even looking to get anything back for the things that he would give. Pirkei Avot, which we read during from Pesach to Shavuot, is full of the different midot that we have to learn, especially towards Kabbalat Torah in Chag HaShavuot. And when I look at the Mishnayot, I see, well, this is my father, and this is my father, and this talks about my father. And this past week, we read all the Ezeu Ashir Hasameach Bechalko. Who's a rich person? Someone who's just happy with what he had. And that's my father, just happy with what he had. He didn't need a new car. He had his car. Then he decided to upgrade to lease a car. But he was happy with whatever car he had. He didn't look, this guy has whatever, I have to get the same thing. That's not what the kind of person he was. He trained numerous people to become accountants, people who achieved salaries much higher than his, and he was happy for them. He wasn't never jealous of anybody who superseded him and got to a higher place. And I don't know if I could ever be that kind of person, but that my father, just be happy that a person was successful. And it was because of him, and he never wanted anything back from that as well. Ezeu chacham halomed mikol adam. My father loved to learn. He didn't always have the time when he was younger, and his education was lacking, but he had a thrill to learn something new. If you brought him a new sefer, he would right away delve into it, learn it. I remember when I was young, coming back from school and Shabbat together. No, tell me something you learned this week. He would sit down with me and he would fight himself from falling asleep. He'd just fight it. But he wanted to hear what did I learn during the week. He used to go to a Mishnah class in West Hempstead every morning after davening. I just found this out from one of the Mishnah people, Michael Levine. He told me that my father was instrumental in always knowing you need Mishnayot, I'll get. Buy Mishnayot and dedicated for this and dedicated for that. No one knew. He would just get Mishnah, making sure that everybody would have the Mishnah. Switch Mesechet. What's the Mesechet coming? Okay, I'll get the Mishnayot. Making sure everyone could learn. He went to Shiurim on Sunday mornings. People do other things Sunday morning. Relaxed day. I had time to go to a Shir. Ezeu Mechubad HaMechabedet HaBriot. Who is an honored person? Someone who knows how to honor others. My father was very well respected, but only because he respected other people. He gave people so much kavod, whether it was the rabbanim in the shul, whether it was people, plain people, just giving them kavod, and people respected him. And I want to, if I have the reshut to do such a thing, make my own line in that Mishnah. And I would say about my father, Ezeu Ahuv Ha'ohevet HaBriot. Who is a loved person? Someone who loved others. My father was beloved by many, many people. He had so many friends. But because he loved them without wanting anything in return. He had friends that he kept in touch with that were more friendly since his wedding and since before his wedding. And one I spoke to just before the Levaya, I said, what can I tell you? You know my father longer than I know him. And he kept his friendship up. My father, he was so pained when I was there, he couldn't find his although he had a cell phone, he never put the numbers in the cell phone. He was afraid, I don't know. Technology wasn't his main thing. And when he couldn't find his black book of all the numbers, he said, how am I going to call my friends? I can't remember the numbers anymore. He was so pained. He has to call this person this day and this person the other day and keep in touch with everyone. Ezeu Ahuv Ha'ohevet HaBriot. His love of Eretz Yisrael, I'm thrilled that we're able to bring him here to Eretz Yisrael for his Kvura. He's going to be buried right next to my grandparents, his parents, in the same plot, and the row right behind them. He loved Eretz Yisrael. He had a date with the television programs that gave the news from Eretz Yisrael twice a day. You couldn't talk to him during those times. I have to know what's going on in Eretz Yisrael. I have to know. And if anything related to Eretz Yisrael, Hebrew news, he loved to listen to news in Hebrew because he wanted to improve his Hebrew at any time. He loved reading books about the history of Eretz Yisrael. All the books. He had books kept by his night table, all about the history of Eretz Yisrael, keep changing them and appreciating every single aspect of Eretz Yisrael. And when something in Eretz Yisrael, an invention, an Israeli invention, he took pride in it like it was his. It was this, you know what we created? You know what we invented? He would tell me, I know, I live here. Doesn't matter. He would have to say and talk about it and whatever he read about it. One or two times I was able to get to him things before he knew about it, and then I sent him the articles, I remember. That was his taking pride. Speaking, loving to speak Hebrew whenever he could. Whenever he would come here, he would try to speak Hebrew, and it wasn't bad, really. Really, he is worthy to be buried in Eretz Yisrael, Baruch Hashem. His love of family, and constantly doing for his family. Whether it began with his kibbud horim, doing anything he can for them at any moment of the day. Whether it was sharing his love for everyone, but not only could you feel his love, he would express it. And not, that's a midah in itself, because a lot of people can show love, but they don't want to say the words, I love you. But he was able to do that, able to do that. And my children are here, and I have a secret to tell you, that I didn't invent the squeezes. It comes from Saba. It really comes from him. And you know, when he gave you a hug, you felt that hug during and after as well. That's what kind of person. He gave you a hug, squeezing you. He took care of his brother and his sister. He has a younger brother and younger sister, and he felt it was his response to take care of them as well. Doing for each and every one. That was part of being loving his family. But one of the most difficult things for my father in the past few years was that he had to have people do things for him. That's not the kind of person he is. He's a doer. He's not one who accepts easily when you do for him. And I think it troubled him. I think it troubled him a lot. And one thing that he could no longer do, whether it be for his community, and he was very active in his community, whether he could no longer do things for his friends, pick them up from the airport, or do this or do that. When it became that he couldn't go to Shiva Minyanim anymore, doing things for his family, doing things for mommy, all those things just became so difficult. And for a selfless person to have to accept from other people, I'm sure that pained him terribly. We have to fill that void, I feel. That void of chesed, that void of giving kavod, that void of showing love to others, the void of having a good friend who's selfless, and someone who's just happy in the successes of another person. That I have to ask mechila from you. I didn't give you the right kavod that you deserved. You deserved much more kavod in your life. And there were some times that I didn't have enough patience, and I'm sorry. But I think that you're getting a lot of kavod at the levaya we had in America, levaya here. Maybe just telling some of the things that you refuse to people know about you. People have to know. People have to know, and people have to learn from you, if not in life, then after your life, how to be a proper person. Bila hamavet lanetzach, u'macha Hashem Elokim dima me'al kol panim. May we all have koach. You should daven for us. We have koach to continue. Mommy should have koach to continue and enjoy the family. Thank you.
I want to start with a small apology to all the people here that we're actually very sorry that we're only able to share one day of our Shiva with you due to COVID restrictions. As usual, where extending our stay past 24 hours would have created a lot of complications. So I'm just saying on behalf of myself and my brother, we look forward to getting extended consolation from all of you even after the Shiva, and we're sorry that it had to work out this way. And as Reuven said, it's hard to repeat, and yet it's easy to repeat, because we feel it's so important that people should know about our dad. And it doesn't help me that my kids say I always repeat myself, and I'm going to say a lot of the same things. Yeah. As I begin to say Divrei Hesped for you, Dad, I realize that I remember that you hated the limelight, and you said to me, please, when the time comes, no fuss or speeches, I think were the words you said. And I never would say a word. I would just keep quiet, because there was no way I was going to agree to that. And because as I said before, there's just so much for us to learn from you. And that's why we're here. And this is one point where I slightly disagree with Reuven, is that I find it a little bit challenging to describe you, because the problem is that you hid a lot of the chesed that you did. Now, the exception, I did a lot of thinking about this. Why was it that he pushed us? Well, that's because someone else's needed something. So if someone else needed a Shiva minion, then he pushed us to do that chesed. But if it was a chesed that wasn't needed for us, he often didn't tell us about it, and we had to find out in all kinds of ways that we'll probably continue to find out about as we speak to people. So that was my one criticism, that I didn't learn enough from you because you kept it quiet and you didn't tell us all the amazing things you did. And you weren't so forceful about things. So if you did a mitzvah, you didn't necessarily insist we do it exactly like you or do the same. I do this, you guys accepting how everybody's different. So we're told the famous saying, Kol haboreach me'akavod, hakavod rodef acharav. For sure, Dad, you ran away from kavod. So why didn't the second part come true? And to me, it's simple, because in your case, you so despised kavod that it just would have been horrible for it to have happened. And therefore, it was the favor was that the kavod never came back to you, and people didn't put you in the limelight. Growing up in Canarsie, you were the person who managed the shul set up for Yomim Noraim. When I say manage, I really mean you did it. As Reuven talked about yesterday, you had to go yourself to put up the parochet. You set up all the chairs. When I got a little older, I used to come help you in shul. And then when Rosh Hashanah came, the same joke every year by the Gabbai, who would say, we're not going to thank the person who doesn't want to be thanked this year. And afterwards, they would, once I started helping, they would mention me, and I'd be quite happy about it. So there again, I wasn't like you. But you didn't just run from kavod. You also ran to all the thankless jobs. It meant a lot for you to be one of the shomrim for people who are nifter in West Hempstead. You love the 2 o'clock shift, the 3 o'clock shift, the 4 o'clock shift. No one else really wanted that one, and that's what you did. You also didn't mind a hard chesed in the middle of the night for any friends of yours that were leaving to the airport or coming back from the airport. They always knew that you were the guy to call, and you'll happily do it. Take them and pick them up. Just a reliable friend, father, husband, accountant, you name it. No favor for someone you loved or cared for was too hard. It's actually an amazing thing when people would know that I'm the son of Ben Rosenstark. They would just tell me, your dad is so wonderful. And from all walks of life, Jews, Goyim, people that he dealt with in all over. And you even took a super thankless job when we lived in Canarsie. You decided that it was important that the shul be quiet. And you would leave your seat when the laning started, walk to the back of the shul, and try your best to keep the people quiet. The interesting thing about it, the thankless job, is that I never saw anybody who had a bad feeling towards you, even though they ignored you. They never had any bad feelings towards you because they knew how your intentions were so pure. Another mitzvah that you specialized in was kibbud horim. When your parents grew old, you would go and shop for them, schlepping to the Lower East Side. I said yesterday, I always wondered what you bought since I never saw you. I never knew about the shopping you did in our home. And then there was the kibbud horim when Bobby started getting older, of taking her to shul. You would leave a half hour early because she wanted to be on time, and she walked really slowly. And once she was in a wheelchair, it was your job. No one could take it from you. You wheeled her to shul, and that was it. I will add that in your care and your kibbud horim, you had an amazing partner in this mitzvah. And our Bobby, your mother, said to us that mommy's like a daughter, and how she cared for her always. As Reuven said about your Jewish education, on the one hand, you didn't have the strongest Jewish education, but you worked very hard to ensure that we would have a strong Jewish education. And at the same time that you maybe didn't get the strong Jewish education, for sure, the love of learning Torah that Reuven discussed, we got from you. The first thing that I think of, and especially once I grew up and became a working person myself, was a sheer Friday night in the house where you learned. Now, we don't work Fridays. In America, they do. I couldn't imagine such a thing. My apologies to anybody who does the Daf Yomi Friday night at 10 p.m. in the summer in Nofei Aviv. You guys are amazing too, and I admire you. And the Sfarim that you read, when Shabbos came, you worked really hard all week, but when Shabbos came, you had your Sfarim that you read. You went through the whole Me'am Loes. I don't know, there's so many volumes in the shelves there, and you subscribed to them as they came out. You read them, and you enjoyed them with your paper clips marked inside where you were up to as you kept going through. And then when you moved to West Hempstead, new opportunities for Torah opened. and of course, you embraced them. There was Shabbat Shiurim before Marav with Rabbi Kellemer or before Shachrit. You didn't mind coming early to shul and having a great shiur before. And as Ruvain said, the Sunday morning shiur, and I'm sure you were not there just for the bagels and the coffee. And as you slowed the amount of time you were working, there was the Mishnah that Ruvain talked about. And you told me that some of the Masechtot, I mean, all of us feel this way when we get to some of the Masechtot, they're not easy. And you told me that some of them you're not sure exactly, you're not going well, but it didn't matter. You were there, and your love of learning just made you want to be there and get what you could from it, and you sat quietly and you did the best you could. This year, as we know for so many people, especially elderly people, you were locked up at home. It was actually fascinating to find out that you reached out to the assistant rabbi, Rabbi Galler, to please help me how to use Zoom so that I can continue attending shiurim. I learned that yesterday. We learned that yesterday, and it was just such an amazing thing to hear. And he did, and he sat and he showed you, and you were attending shiurim, and he pointed out you would always be the first one, the first 5 people going into the Zoom. And luckily for us, we also figured out a way to deal with the technology, and we started learning together, Dad. You would call me regularly in the morning once your shingles pain had subsided. And as Ruvain said, I also have to ask Mechila, and that it was hard for me sometimes. You called and I didn't necessarily, wasn't a good time for me. I didn't have the patience, it was hard. And you had this enthusiasm saying, let's do it, let's learn. And I would say, well, I can't right now, I'll call you back soon, hoping that the pain won't come back of the shingles. We'll be able to do it later on. Another aspect of your Kavod Torah combined with your handiness. When you caught a ripped sefer in my home, you fixed it. You just didn't want it to stay that way. And I like this story that Ruvain told, that you saw his tefillin boxes were ripped. So you just replaced them without telling him. And this covered of Tashmishe Kedusha. These were important things too. Torah has to look a certain way, has to be a certain way. Things that relate to mitzvah have to be a certain way. If we move on to you as an accountant, you had a picture above your desk in Canarsie, and I don't remember the exact words, but it was more or less something along the lines of, an honest person, I prefer a clever accountant. And you were a clever accountant, but you were very honest. And as we talked about already, Ruvain mentioned, your accounting was just another way for you to do so much chesed for people that needed their accounting done and they couldn't afford it. You worked for yeshivot, you worked for all kinds of places, and in all of them, they saw, the people that I would speak to when I would come meet you or pick you up, how much they loved you and how much they just thought you were such a great person to do this job for them. And one of the things that I strive in life is to, like Ruvain said, is to just be like you, that when people hear my name and I'm your son, they say, wow, and they just want to say good things, and just natural chesed, that you have this that it just comes out from you, the tenderness and the love that you have for people and caring for them. There was a story that happened a number of years ago where a person trusted me with a certain thing for a sum of money. And when I walked away from there, what made me most happy about this story was that, wow, maybe I'm getting to be as good as my dad. Someone would get to know me for a few minutes and say, you seem trustworthy. And that day I thought of this idea that we're told that at Tzaddik ben Tzaddik, his tefillot are answered before a Tzaddik ben Rasha. Because the Tzaddik ben Rasha is a place to say that, wow, I'm a really good person, look where I came from, and look where I am today. But a Tzaddik ben Tzaddik, he knows, listen, look at my background, look at what I have. So when I do something good, I can't really take credit for it, because I'm probably not doing it as well as you did it anyway. So it knocks me down, even when I try to do the good things. But all I said until now about you, really just an introduction to your great midah that Ruvain discussed as well, but how can we not talk about it more, is your ayin tova and your hakarat hatov. You always thanked Hashem in every sentence for everything you have. And as we said, when you came to Israel, you would just admire everything about it, what Hashem's developing in this country. And you went, I remember we went to Osher Ad the first time, and you were blown away by this giant supermarket in Eretz Yisrael, and more streets, more buildings, everything's building. What an unbelievable thing. And you had this just tremendous sense of hakarat hatov for everything. Again, another story for those people who weren't there yesterday. I just such a beautiful story that you were recently in the hospital a few weeks back, and the rabbi of Wasem said, Rabbi Galler called to say hello to you. And on the entire conversation, he kept on getting interrupted because every time a nurse would walk in, you would say, "Thank you very much, thank you very much, thank." And Rabbi Galler was like, "Well," and someone pointed out that I think that there's one more point in that story, that he didn't even get upset because he knew that it was so built into you, Dad, that you can't get something from someone without saying thank you. Even though you might have been pogea in this rabbi's but he didn't think so. He understood that it was so built into you. As a part of the appreciation of all that you have, Dad, I also learned about why turning 80 is called gvurot. You've been asked since around that age to display a lot of gvura and courage dealing with your body starting to fail you. Shingles has been a tremendous makkah and hard to watch when you suffered. But you just kept on thanking Hashem, looking for solutions, not giving up, not being bitter. This midah was such a part of you all your life. There was a lot of bad things that happened in the course of your life, but you never let the suffering that you or your family went through get to you or get you down. You just kept looking at all the good stuff. You couldn't travel anymore. You couldn't really get true nachat from the kids firsthand, and the grandkids, and the great-grandkids. But you just talked about how much you loved them, and how you were proud of them, and you loved the pictures, and you loved whatever they sent, and whatever they did. Dad, your love for us was palpable, was unbounded. When you fell a few years ago, you gave away one of the small acts of love that you never told us about, but you told me you did, that you like to do for Mommy. You said whenever she would come home from the store, or for wherever she did, you would try to make sure to go and open the door from her to greet her. But you were hurt at that time. So you said to me, please go open the door and do that for me. And recently, you truly went on and on and on about Mommy, about how much she does for you, and how much she cares for you, and what an amazing person she is, and you're so lucky to have her. And those are you said. And you were proud of each and every one of us. You would love to tell me about shiurim that Ruvain sent to you. That, again, one of the advantages of COVID was that now he had to send things on YouTube, so it was easy for him to share them. And you got to see him as a Rebbe when you went on a trip with him a few years ago, many years ago. And for Miriam, you told me recently she's just an amazing person and all that she does for you. And your boundless love for Zev, always wanting to bring him to shul, give him this experience in shul. And we even pointed out that you moved your seat to sit in the center of the shul, which isn't your favorite place to sit, because it was good for Zev. And your ability to love each grandchild, great-grandchild, spouses of nephews, nieces, was palpable. As we pointed out yesterday in talking to our cousins, and Ruvain just talked about now, the squeeze and the term, the boychik, when he said to them, and all these things that they fondly remember and was so part of every family get-together. You were also our father on the ground. You made us learn how to drive a car correctly, and you worked hard on it. And riding a bicycle, taking us to do things, even if you didn't like them so much, but you wanted us to have those experiences, whether it was sports games that you really didn't love so much, but you wanted us to enjoy them. And I remember once you took all my friends with us, even though, why did you have to be the one to do it? And you did it. So the interpretation, 2 nights ago, I guess I'm losing track of time, when you passed away, what happened was that we started seeing that things were not going in a good direction. Ruvain was there with you. He said Shema with you. And he talked about each and every one of your children, great-grandchildren and great-grandchildren. He said how we each loved you. And we told you, and he told you that it's okay if you leave. And then shortly afterwards, you passed away. And my understanding of that was that you've been suffering all this time because you were waiting for us to come to terms with it, and you only wanted us to accept it. I'm just going to end quickly, because it's long, with Hakarat HaTov, to repeat all the things. Mommy, you were such a great team for 63 years, and we wish Daddy to be a Meili Tzioshir for you to continue to have to work with your family and have nachas and be strong and healthy. And Miriam, as we said, you shouldered so much, and I can't say enough, even if I repeat what Ruvain said, that you had to be there on the ground and dealing with so much when your life doesn't stop just because you have a sick father and you have to do the things you do in addition, and we all know what that's like. And Daddy said to me, you really are the most amazing person to deal with it, and he truly appreciated. And like Daddy, I will thank Hashem for so much good and how the end happened, as Ruvain said. We had amazing care in the hospital, rules being broken to allow us to have the most amazing quality time in the last week of your life. And we're thankful to Hashem for that as well. We love you. We thank you for being the greatest dad. I want to read a few sentences from some of your grandchildren, Shir and Racheli, of thoughts and that they wanted to share with you. Every time Saba called and I answered, I always said it was Mary Jane. And he would always laugh and say, no, but you have a beautiful Jewish name. Saba had a very big and happy smile that would make everyone around him smile too. I have to agree with that. Every time we talked to Saba on the phone and we asked him how he's feeling, he always said, now that he's talking to us, he feels a lot better. Every time we were with him, he always played with us games, and he always, whether it was rummy cub or chess, and it was just a lot of fun. And every time we spoke to him, he always said how much he loves us, and he never, ever spoke to us without saying that. And when I broke my arm, he was always very worried about me. And when we spoke, he didn't hang up without making sure many times that I'm okay, and it doesn't hurt, even after my cast was off and my arm was all better. Anybody else? Danny, right? Danny? 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 Danny, go.
I don't want to use this. No.
Okay.
So I just wanted to share some words that my wife,
His oldest granddaughter
wrote, and then a few words of my own. Dear Zaidi, just a few months ago, Danny and I were walking you home from our beautiful family Seder. Your last one with us that you led so beautifully. We weren't sure if you would be able to be strong enough to come. And not only did you sit until the end, we sang and ate and drank, and you listened to Chaim sing Manishtana 20 times, each time louder and louder. How lucky we were to be able to spend your last Pesach with you, with some of your great-grandchildren and grandchildren at the table. We have been lucky and honored the last bunch of years to do so with you, and we will remember them forever. Although we have moved away from New York to be in Israel for the last almost 10 years, growing up with having my Zaidi and Bobby a few streets away is the most special thing a granddaughter can have in life. You were always around, whether to fix something in the house, or take us to Wingwan, or to come kiss you in the middle of davening at Shul each week, and the many times we were able to visit or stay with you whenever we wanted or needed. Your pride and joy in life were your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and we knew it always. You never said hello or goodbye without also saying how much you loved us and how proud you were of each of us, and you always knew how to make each one of us feel special. Thank you for always showing and teaching us how to love and care for family by the way you loved Bobby and all your children. We will miss you each and every day and feel so zocha to be able to have the wonderful memories we have. I just want to share a personal anecdote with Zaidi. We used to quibble back and forth sometimes about general Haredi hashkafas and participation in the IDF in particular. He was so proud of his grandchildren who have and will serve in the IDF and protect the physical security of the country, and he never shied away from talking about all their accomplishments. One trip, we returned back to Israel, And upon unpacking the luggage, I noticed Jerusalem Post articles about inspirational activities of the soldiers. So, Zaidi, I want to ask Michiel if I was ever chutzpahdik in those discussions and in general. We never spoke about those articles afterwards, but I knew who the messenger was and what the important message was and will be forever. We were Zocha the past 10 years to come at least once or twice a year, and I spent more time with you the last decade than with my own grandfather. I want to thank you for being the ultimate role model in life. You immigrated as a child and built up a life and family after surviving the unimaginable. Your unwavering devotion to Bobby is something I will always picture and aspire to replicate. Tova and I will always remember your dedication in every humanly possible way to your family, the immediate West Hempstead community, and Eretz Yisrael. You may have physically lived abroad, but your passion for Eretz Yisrael left many over here feeling lacking when around you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to learn from you and for always being a shining example and guide for our family and beyond.
Wow. Good story. Good story.
Saba, as I try to put my thoughts into words, I find it impossible to understand how you who were so alive, full of life, living your life to the fullest, no more. The past day I've been hearing stories about you, and I feel a little jealous and a little sorry that I missed out on really getting to know you. There's so much of you that I didn't really know, so much of you that I wish I could have more time to spend. Another conversation, to learn more about you, to hear more stories about where you grew up, about the war. It's so hard keeping a connection so far, and I feel that I missed out a lot on growing up with a grandfather. But on the other side, I can say that although we didn't get to see you in Safta all that much, every meeting was even more meaningful and powerful. We would look forward to meeting you once a year, twice a year. If we were lucky, it would be 3 times a year. Each visit was so full and packed that would leave us with a lot of energy and koach and love, and these visits would last for a long time. I always felt that despite the distance, we always felt you and Safta's warm love, and even though you were so far, you were really so close. We felt the caring, the devotion, the love, the nachat, and the pride you had with us. I want to thank you for being the loving Saba who would always make us feel so happy. Your big smile, your jokes, your sense of humor, your optimistic attitude, your cynicism, and just the fun you brought with you everywhere you went. Thank you for teaching us the meaning of loving everyone and never judging a person by their behavior. Just love, smile, and care for all. But if I really want to say one thing that I really have had an impact on me, it would be thank you for sharing and showing us and teaching us the meaning of Zionism. Saba, you lived your life with gratitude, appreciation, and deep connection to the meaning of Am Yisrael, Medinat Yisrael. You really felt the meaning of the miracle of Israel. I remember conversations with you saying stories, history stories, Israel, and the fact of Israel was just so Medinat Yisrael, Am Yisrael. It was so powerful, so everything would make you emotional. You'd be full of gratitude, and you've seen these miracles happen. You've seen the Medinat Yisrael come, and you lived your life seeing this dream and feeling dreams of thousands of years coming true. I always found it funny and surprising that you and Safta bought a little piece of ground here in Eretz HaChaim. We would always joke about you coming to visit your home to be one day, visiting the neighbors. But only now I fully understand. Only now I fully understand, because although you never made Aliyah, your heart was always, always, always in Eretz Israel. And now finally you can rest and lay down in the place you loved so much. I promise you I will continue telling the story of Am Yisrael. I promise I'll try to pass on your passion, your love, your gratitude, and your connection to Israel. Thank you for being a role model and showing us how to be a good person. Thank you for being the best Saba in the world. So finally now, you can rest a little, something you love to do so much. No more suffering. Nuach b'shalom mishkavcha. We love you very much.
So again, I want to apologize if anyone already heard this yesterday. I just jotted down some of my memories of Saba and just a little bit of a taste of who he was to me. As a little child, I remember when my parents would tell me that Saba and Savta were coming to Israel, I would always count the days till they landed. Then, of course, when they got here, I would get upset that we have to share them with the Beit Shemesh Rosenstarks. But I always admired how Saba would insist when he was here on picking up the paper in Hebrew and would sit for hours and devour it. Then he would come and ask me what this word is or that word is, when he could have just as easily picked up the Jerusalem Post. We got to spend a lot of time with Saba when Yair, Neely, and myself lived in New Jersey for around a year. We would come for Shabbat and Chagim and enjoy spending time with both of them. On our walks to and from shul, Saba always felt the need to introduce us to all his friends and neighbors, and I could always see how they all loved him and were happy to see him. I'm sharing a little story that was shared again yesterday, but again, I hope Saba forgives me for sharing this story with you, Savta, since we always promised it would stay a secret between us. Every time he would come over to Saba and Savta and get sick of all the bagels, so one of us would go out and pick up some food, pizza, wingwan, or whatever. We would always ask Saba if he wanted something, and Savta would right away say, "No, Ben, it's not healthy, you don't need that." But with time, we learned to always sneak him in a slice of pizza or some soup or something, and Saba always knew we had his back. Another memory I have from Saba, which is something that has been with me after I gave birth also to Maya and Erez, was when Neely was born. I remember calling him after we named her in New Zealand, and he asked me, "What's her name?" I said, "Neely." He said, "That's it? Thank you. Finally, a name that I can say." One of the important things I learned from Saba, and I think everybody who knew him saw this, was his dedication towards his job and his clients. It wasn't just work for him. It was what kept him going for so many years, and he never gave up, even when he hit a roadblock. My Saba was a very special person to me and my family. In the last few years, Yair got to spend a lot of time with Saba and Savta since he was on the go so much. And your house was always open to him at all hours of the night. When he would get back from his trips, Yair would always tell me the intense conversations he had with Saba on all the evolving politics. Israel, America, it didn't matter. Saba always had what to say. I feel very privileged that we got to speak with him and see him until almost the very end. Right before Pesach, when I called Saba and Savta to say Chag Sameach, I told Saba that we have tickets to come and visit in the summer. So that he could meet his newest great-grandchild. We miss you very much, Saba, and we'll make you proud.
On behalf of my siblings, things we'll miss most about you, Saba. Your big, tight, warm bear hugs that contained in them so much love. Your great smile that lit up your whole face, and it was just so contagious. Your stories of your childhood during the war in Russia, and the best one, the way you met Savta the first time on the ice skating rink and he danced with her. Basically, love at first sight. It was an inspiration to see how all those years together only made your love towards each other greater and greater. Teaching us chess and winning, playing checkers and rummy cub, even though you often couldn't tell the difference between red and orange. Your patience and kindness towards everyone, and your amazing kindness in every situation. Your contentedness, as my uncle said, you're always happy with what Hashem gave you, not looking for more or for what others have. It was quite amusing watching you go through the sales section in the newspaper in the morning, going through shirts, nah, I have some. Pants, nah, stuff they got me. Shoes, I don't need any. I have everything, I don't need anything. And then he would just throw the newspaper away because he didn't need it. Watching your face light up when you spoke about a great shiur you went to, or a nice Dvar Torah, or a funny story you read. Your face would practically shine when you spoke about the Jews and Israel as a country. It's amazing what those Jews have done, you would say, with so much pride. You really believed the Jews were the ones bringing the world to a better place. I often like to bring up some topic from the news just to hear you say those words again. And then I would feel with pride myself for being part of such an amazing nation. And on top of all, we'll miss the way you made sure we knew just how much you love each and every one of us. Your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and the spouses you loved as your own. Every conversation you started with, I love you so much, I want you to know, and you ended the same way, I love you so much. And even when you were in so much pain that you could barely talk, even though you tried to hide it, you would struggle to let out those words and let us know just how much you love us and how special we are. We love you so much, Saba. And we miss you beyond any words. You'll be in our hearts forever. Be a Medit Yosher for all of us. Rest in peace.
פרק ט"ז בתהילים, מכתב לדוד שומרי נאל כי חסיסי בוך, אמרת לאדינוי אדינוי אותי וסיבה לו לכו, לקדושים אשר באורץ אימו באדירי כל חב ציבום, ירבו עצבי סום אחר מהרו בעל השיח נזכה מדום, ובעל סרש מסום על ספוסוי, אדינוי מנס חלקי בכוי סייתו תמר רולי, שופלוי היחס אדינו ישר אפילו יסיסו מחיסוי ביביסי אדינו נגדי סועד כי מימיני בא למועד תוכן סומך ליבי בעוגל כבוידיו וצוריש קוראים לו בטח היא לא יישא עזוב נפשי לשוי לא יסיתן חסית חול לירו לשוחס תוידיין יוי רחאים סוי ועצמכו יסס פונכו נעימויס בימין חונצח
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ועמד בברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מלך לעולם ולמעל מיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתגדל ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה במן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
לפי מנהג ירושלים, כל יוצא חלציו, הבנים והבנות, נכדים ונכדות, לא הולכים אחר המיטה. הצאצאים הולכים לפני, הוא ייקח אתכם לחלקת קבר. הציבור מבקש ויכולו שבפוי ולא יועיל כל סבוסוי. אמן.
Vida da vida da vida lá os meios do chave lá no passado estivatados no passado nessa matada grande almado amém samama maiava sem balena para Israel e amém shalom de mamadu e a shalom além no para Israel e amém
Ele sei que ele vai ser nós falar de nós mas tudo que dá essa foi eu ia te contar isso
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלל שמי קדושה ותפארתה לעילא מכל ברכתה ושירתה ושבחתה ונחמתה דמכאן בעלמא וימרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל וימרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומה ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל וימרו אמן. שהצאצאים יזוזו קצת אחורה שנוכל לערוך את התגבורה. קצת אחורה. לשתי דקות. לשתי דקות. צריכים גם את זה. אוזדם נומן, אוזדם נומן. בן דיצילי בן רבו, כי מלוכו ויצא ולוך לשמורכו בכל דרוכיכו. נכדים בתצאים. ציבור זמן לחסר. נכדים. ברוך הוא מכפר ובוא יתגלה ואפוי ולא יהיו כל חמוצוי. והוא רחום מכפר רבוים ולא ישיב, ובוא להוסיף ואפוי ולא יהיו כל חמוצוי. והוא רחום מכפר רבוים ולא ישיב, ובוא להוסיף ואפוי ולא יהיו כל חמוצוי. פרק ט"ז בתהילים, יכתוב לדוד שומרני אל כי חוסי סיבוך, אומרת לאדינו ידינו יותותים חסיבה לו לכו, לקדושים אשר באורץ אימו באדיר כל חפציבום, ירבו עצמי סום אחר מערובה להסיח פסקי מידום, ובא לסוי שמי סום על ספוסוי, אדינוי מנס חלקי בכוי סייחתותים יחברו לי, חבולים נופלו לי בנים ממפנח לא שופרו לוי, אבורי חסר דיני אשר יוצוני, אף לי לא יסיסרוי חיני לא יסוי, שוביס יעדינו אלה נגדי סומית כמי מיני בעלמוי, לא כן סומך לי בי בהרגל כבודי עד בסורש כהן לו בטח, כי לא יפעז בפניו שיני שואל לסיתם חסיד חול לרוי שוחס, תוי דיין יוי רחיים סוי מסמוכוי סספונכו, ואימוי סביבינכו נצח. קדר לי קדש מי רבי, ורמד יברכותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל, עד עולם בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן.
אמן יהי שמיה בנגודה.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, יתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמרן ועלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה בן שמעיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. בנדיט סיני בן רבורו, בשם החברה קדישה, בשם המשפחה, הקרובים והידידים, אנו מבקשים ממך סליחה ומחילה. שמא חס וחלילה פגענו בכבודך, הן בטהרה, בנשיאת המיטה ובתיקון הקבר, אנא סלח לנו כי אין זו אלא שגגה. החברה קדישה נהגה איתך כמנהגי ירושלים עיר הקודש. תהיה נא מליץ יושר עבור משפחתך, קרוביך וידידיך, ועבור כל כלל ישראל בכל תפוצות ישראל. וייתן השם ויגולה מוות לנצח, ומחה השם אלוקים דמם על כל פנים, ובא לציון גואל במהרה בימינו אמן. לך בשלום ותנוח בשלום ותעמוד בגורלך לקיץ הימים. כשנצא מחוץ לחלקה בכביש למעלה נעשה 2 שורות גברים לניחום אבלים לבנים, את האישה ואת הבת מנחמים בלישוע.
Don't go this way, just wait here.
המקום ינחם אתכם כמו לסגור את השורות, לסגור, לא לעבור בפנים אלא לסגור.